And I give the floor now to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the A3+, namely Guyana, Sierra Leone, Somalia, and my own country, Algeria. We wish to thank Mrs. Catherine Russell, Executive Director of UNICEF, and Mr. Christopher Lockyer, Secretary General of Médecins Sans Frontières, for their briefings. And we welcome the participation to this meeting of the representatives of Sudan and the United Arab Emirates. As we speak, the situation in Sudan remains deeply alarming and has taken a heavy toll on innocent lives of civilians, particularly women and children. From our seats here, as member of the Council, we treat on a daily basis with the consequences of war, its humanitarian impacts, and spillover effects. But for civilians, regardless of the location, war destroys lives, hopes, career, future, families. War destroys the foundation of communities, the foundation of nations. Madam President, the most recent UNICEF report on the situation of children in Sudan is simply horrifying. The cases documented in this report confirm once again the level of suffering and inconceivable violations that children in Sudan continue to endure on a daily basis. Moreover, Sudan's healthcare infrastructure is targeted in frequent attacks, resulting in the collapse of the whole healthcare system, and thus leaving hundreds of thousands of Sudanese without access to basic health services. A precarious situation that has detrimental impact on the most vulnerable and leads to increased mortality, to increased suffering. These disturbing developments are taking place under our watch in a country where the largest humanitarian crisis is unfolding globally. Dear colleagues, in light of the current situation, we, the A3+, wish to underline the following points. First, civilians in Sudan must be protected. The plight of women, girls, and children is especially important in the application of protection measures. We condemn all forms of violation being committed against civilians, and we call for the necessary investigations to be conducted to identify the perpetrators of these appalling crimes and bring them to justice. We also demand an immediate end to violence against women and girls and other atrocities being inflicted upon them in Sudan as a weapon of war. We emphasize the need to explore all possible ways to enhance protection for women and girls and to provide them with adequate support, including comprehensive mental health services and safe spaces. In this regard, the recent reports on grave violation on human rights, international humanitarian law committed by the Rapid Sudanese forces against women and children, particularly in Darfur, are a source of deep concern, and they require this Council resolve to address them urgently. Yes, this Council resolve. As we engage in the 69th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, Sudanese women must not be forgotten. We applaud their resilience and reiterate our call for their full inclusion in all Sudanese-owned and Sudanese-led political processes. In this context, we welcome the Sudanese National Plan for the Protection of Civilians, which includes combating violence against women and children as one of its main components. We encourage the prompt implementation of these actions. Madam President, second, attacks against critical civilian infrastructure, in particular hospitals, must cease immediately. Hospitals are the place where soul, bodies are healed, where hope is nourished. They cannot, in any case, be a source of danger or threat and must not be targeted. We call, therefore, on all the parties to respect their obligation and their international law, particularly international humanitarian law, and to honor their commitment made in Jeddah in 2023, in May 2023. Third, the need to scale up humanitarian assistance cannot be overemphasized. Mobilizing the necessary resources to fund the humanitarian needs and response plan is crucial, and we call for a unified approach in this regard. Resources that encompass hygiene kits, psychosocial support for victims of sexual violence, healthcare, and food must flow freely into Sudan. In addition to an already dire situation, we are alarmed to learn of a cholera outbreak in the southern part of Sudan. This was the consequence of important damages to the power plant in the White Nile state, caused by an RSF attack. It is crucial that the main water station of the region be repaired urgently. Furthermore, the attacks perpetrated by against IDPs camps in and around El Fasher, including the Zamzam and Abu Shuk IDP camps, are a further atrocity that must not be ignored. While welcoming the effort deployed by the government of Sudan to facilitate the provision of humanitarian assistance, we call for the sustenance of these measures. We also underline the importance of close coordination between all humanitarian actors and the government of Sudan. As mentioned in our previous joint statement, Madam President, the military solution regrettably seems to be the path chosen by the Sudanese actors. The protection of civilians, particularly women, girls, and children, cannot be realized without laying the foundations of a national, inclusive, meaningful, and Sudanese-own political process. To this end, we call for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and resumption of dialogue, particularly given the implication for peace and security in the region. We also reiterate our call for the firm and public condemnation of foreign interference in the Sudanese conflict. The condemnation of foreign interference in the Sudanese conflict. As we conclude, Madam President, we urge our Sudanese brothers and sisters to seize the opportunity of the holy month of Ramadan to observe a ceasefire and to give way to dialogue over violence. I thank you.
And I thank the representative of Algeria for the statement.